We're on to Leviticus chapters 9 and 10 today, and immediately everything has gone completely wrong. At the end of the last video, we had the ordination of the first ever priest, Aaron and his sons and family. They had the 7-day ordination, and then this is the 8th day. The day after that, they're made priests. And it's going to be a big old party. God's going to turn up and come and show his glory to everybody, whatever that means. So there's call for a great big sacrifice. So it's literally first day of priestly sacrificial things, and it's like a proper full-on bloodbath. But it's an exciting day because God is saying that he's going to appear to everyone, despite having not said that long ago that no one can see him and all the rest of it. There's going to be an appearance, so excellent. We'll get to see what that looks like. Aaron and the priests go into the tent anyway, do all this sacrifice thing, chop up a whole load of animals and wash legs and organs and put things on altars and all the rest of it. And sure enough, God turns up. It says the glory of God appears and fire comes out of it and consumes everything that's being put on the altar. And it's said that the people will shout for joy and fall flat on their faces, and it's all a great party. And evidently a lot of people see this as well. It's just shown to the people. So it's a pretty big event, presumably, in terms of the number of people who witnessed it. The annoying part, though, is that it doesn't describe what the people see. It just says the glory of God appears and fire comes out of it and eats up some stuff on an altar. And that's kind of a key point. It would have been nice to have had mentions as to what God actually looked like in that sense, and maybe I'm completely missing the point. I guess that's the point of this. I am missing the point. I'm trying to find what the point is, but it's a difficult problem to solve when it says God appears but no one actually describes what he looks like. Anyway, so far so good, but we then have Aaron's two of Aaron's sons. I think there's several, so we need to get the names, which were Nadab and Abihu. And they sound like Star Wars characters to me, but evidently not Star Wars characters. First ever priests. They bring to God some sort of incensey type burning offering, which doesn't please God at all because it's unauthorized, it says. So this fire that came out and got the altar comes out and gets Nadab and Abihu and sets fire to them. It's not described, but it seems in front of everybody. It says the fire consumes them and they are dead. That's it. Moses has to go and get Nadab and Abihu's cousins to go and take their bodies away because it's all very unsightly outside the tent. God then turns to Aaron, being the father of the two people who've just been murdered by fire right in front of his face and everybody else. That basically says, I told you this is what's going to happen if you don't do as you're told. And so apparently they got one of these rituals wrong. I mean, I suppose to be fair, they had just been explained and Moses had written them all down, so this should have been clear. But punishment fitting crime is a bit of a common theme going on here. And it says that Aaron just remains silent, which is interesting. We're only looking at 2 chapters today because there's a lot in that, I think. We've got the problem of what glory of God looks like, because it's a bit of a random phrase, isn't it? We've also got the other gigantic elephant in the room, of course, that 2 of the first priests, on their first day in the job, turn up to bring a nice little offering to God. Here you go, God. I'll do our little priestly thing, and he sends fire to them. I mean, it's we knew barbecue was an established thing, but barbecued human was not a step I was particularly expecting. So what on earth are we to do with this? Taking the question of what happened to Aaron's sons first. I'm not going to try and do their names again. I've forgotten them again already. There's clearly something in there in terms of do it right, good things, still don't know what those good things are, do it wrong, bad things. So it sort of labours that point, I suppose, in somewhat dramatic fashion. There doesn't seem to be any indication that this story is supposed to be metaphorical, other than, I suppose, the glory of God appearing. Maybe perhaps that's metaphorical, I don't know. But it does sound like it was quite bringing along this thing, here we go, God, and killed for it. I do wonder if it's possible that it's something like there's a burning thing and there's been oil involved and all the rest of it. Does someone trip over, spill the oil, set light to themselves, and they're like Ewan McGregor in the Da Vinci Code or something like that? Like a horrible accident that people go, oh, must have done something God didn't like, therefore that happened. I think that has to be a possibility, of course, but that does seem to be something of a cop-out, because the Bible is clearly saying that this is what happened, and in Christianity, Judaism and Islam, they're presumably not saying that this is metaphorical, someone tripped and set light to themselves by accident. It is actually saying that they did this, God did that, and that's okay. That makes sense as sort of part of some sort of big picture. It's difficult to see what that big picture is, though, isn't it? I mean, that is severe. I mean, what a way to go as well. Yeah. And then on top of that, we've got this glory of God problem. In the world of finance, there's the term bond that refers to half a dozen different things that are all completely different. And glory seems to be similar in that respect. But I don't understand how the glory of God is to appear. I suppose if someone did something, like some wonderful, amazing acts of stuff, or like Mother Teresa, for example, does wonderful, great things, people might say you can see the glory of God in action through her. Fine. But this is saying that God appeared, or the glory of God appeared, God saying he was going to come down. But what did that look like? It wasn't Mother Teresa stood there, was it? So I'm just not sure what to do with that. But it does... Perhaps it's a good point at which to sort of have a quick look at the concept of language in all things theological. I did do a couple of trips to church before I started this, and that's part of the reason I ended up doing this. And so I went along with a friend, and I hadn't been to church for 30 years or something, and curious to see what it was like. And I'd say I was agnostic before, so go and have a nose. And it was super impressed. It was a brilliant church. It was lively. It was full of people. It was warm. It were nice people. Absolutely brilliant. I think my dad would have been delighted to have seen a church a lot like that. It was still all dark and cold and a bit dreary back in his day, despite his efforts to try and drive something a bit more engaging. But even a church like that, very welcoming, very warm and friendly and all the rest of it, it still has that significant barrier in my mind of the, I guess you could call it churchy language, for want of a better word. It's the sort of thing where if you already believe in God, then proclaiming things like glory to God and glory God appears and it's all wonderful, they all seem to like that, and it seems to make sense to them, and there seems to be sort of like a cohesiveness in the community around that sort of thing. But if you don't believe in God and you're going to church as an agnostic to try and figure out what you believe, then I personally find that language quite alienating. And as kind as it is for someone who truly believes all that stuff to offer to spend their time praying for you, if you don't believe in God, you therefore don't believe in the power of prayer. Therefore, it's a somewhat meaningless solution to your problem, I guess, as it were. I did warn in the channel description, left-brained, so it's perhaps adding an extra problem in my case. I should add that's in no way intended as a criticism of the church. None of this is intended as a criticism of the church. I think on the whole, it's probably a good thing. People do bad things in the name of religion, they do it in the bad name of politics, they do it in race, they do it in gender, people do dumb stuff all the time for all sorts of reasons. I don't think you can blame it on the underlying thing they're arguing about, generally. So I think probably on the whole, a bunch of people believing that you've got to do some good stuff because that's the key to do a good life, the right way to do life, that's got to be a good thing. So not a criticism of the church or anything else. But it is an alienating problem, and the Bible is not particularly solving that, in the sense that you go back to the source material and we're still getting phrases like the glory of God turns up and sets fire to people, but we don't know what the glory of God is. So it's a frustrating problem, but we'll soldier on and we'll see what we find throughout the rest of it. But I think that concept of the glory generally, I think, is something we're going to have to keep an eye on and try and suss out as we go.